1993, when cross-border firing was a very common thing, and when you got hit by a ricochet and your leg had been badly plastered, you were evacuated to the hospital in 92 BH, and then of course recovered from there, given some kind of a sick leave to recoup. And at that time you thought that will you be able to now do whatever you've been doing in the future, or will this always be a hindrance in your career? I somehow would say kind of a associated stigma that here is a low medical category officer, not fit to do physical activity, and yet wants to continue to serve in the army and rise. So it does become a turning point as to what lies ahead for you.
In a long journey of nearly 44 years, there are obviously many important events. But if I have to pick up one or two defining moments, as you call it, I would say it was starting the journey on the telecom by way of introduction of India's first push-button telephone. That is where the romance with telecom started. Before that, I used to do small, little odds-and-ends businesses, bicycle parts, importing generators, plastics. But when I brought India's first push-button phone, I think that created a bit of a stir, storm, and until that time, we used to have the rotary phones. And our generation will know it, but today's generation would probably see them in relics of museum and all that. And that was a big change. And that sort of transformed my journey, I would say. And then this was 1982. And then we started to build answering machines, fax machines, cordless phones, plethora of user terminals. But I would say the bigger wave, I would say, or the biggest moment in my life was 1992, when the mobile phone tenders were put out by the government. And we, as rank outsider, finally managed to win a license in Delhi after High Court, Supreme Court, battles with the big titans of Indian industry. And in 95, we launched India's first mobile phone here in Delhi. So I would say that, to my mind, if I look back, would be the most important part of our journey.
The decision by the government of India to nominate me for Secretary Generalship of the United Nations, Dr. Manmohan Singh, as Prime Minister, had sounded me out on that in September 2005 when he came to New York for the UN General Assembly. But for various reasons, the government had not proceeded with that idea. And by June, I had written off the possibility that would ever happen because the elections were going to be starting imminently. To my surprise, I got a call from the then Foreign Secretary, Shyam Saran, saying, "We're announcing your name later today," which kind of took me aback, but there it was, and I leapt into it. It was a turning point in two ways. First, I had spent 29 years almost at the United Nations in the self-effacing role of an international civil servant. Yes, there was diplomacy. Yes, I had the opportunity to rub shoulders with and shake hands with some of the most famous figures in the world, presidents and prime ministers included. But it was very much as a figure, as part of a team, part of an institution, and the role itself did not privilege individuality. It was about representing the institution and the ideals of the United Nations. Suddenly, I would be projected as this individual candidate, not only standing up for the ideals of the UN, but doing so on behalf of a government, of a country, and seeking, therefore, to lead that institution. That was itself a turning point. And then the turning point that occurred when the race was conducted and lost, because for me, obviously, I had spent my lifetime at the United Nations. I joined at the age of 22. And I had felt in many ways, when this offer came from the government of India, that it almost was a culmination of all the work I had done in all the key fields the Secretary General needed to be familiar with. I had worked at the UN in the political domain, in the peacekeeping domain, in the humanitarian domain, working for refugees, in administration as Under Secretary General of the largest department of the UN, in communications, in management. And all of this I felt had equipped me in an unusual way for the job. But when I lost the race, in the realization, of course, that these jobs are not about the most convincing resume, they're about a political vote in a political institution, the Security Council, and political choices are made by governments. At that point, it was a turning point because the career on which I was sort of smoothly coasting for 28 years at that point, 28 and a half years at that point, was suddenly going to be ending abruptly. when I was just past my 50th birthday. And that's not a time when normally you ideally want to be looking for a new job. So suddenly I realized that I would have to reinvent my life after that turning point. And that process of reinvention took a couple of years, but it did mean that I had another major turning point as a result of that decision to contest for Secretary General.
There are many turning points in my life, but in terms of the big ones, I would say there are 3 or maybe 4. One, of course, the day I joined IIT. This was in 1991, same year as India's liberalization. I was an average student in class 10. I had 76%. And I saw people around me dismissing me as an average student. I felt I needed to do something to be taken seriously. Something remarkable that will make them notice me. I started preparing for IIT and got in. It changed how people saw me. I was suddenly this achiever. More than anything, it changed the way I saw myself. Suddenly I was special, I could do anything, and that boost in self-confidence, that was a turning point that carried me for whatever I achieved from that point on. The second turning point came when my book 5 Point Someone released in 2004. I wrote that book as a hobby, sort of to continue the extracurricular activities I did in college, and then do it in the bank now, where I used to work. Nothing more. But then the book came out and became a bestseller, broke all records. They say redefined Indian publishing, and frankly, it redefined my career and life. The third turning point was in 2009, with the release of the film 3 Idiots, based on 5 Point Someone. I was an established author by then, but since I wrote in English, the reach is going to be limited. I was in fact still working in a bank, I remember, but this movie came out and became a phenomenon. Even today, people see 3 Idiots, they talk about it, and they made me a household name. I quit my banking job. I became a full-time writer, and that was more than 10 years ago, and I've never looked back. The fourth turning point, if you can call it that, was in maybe 2014 when the Modi government first came to power. I'd started writing columns many years before that, but I was the early ones in English media to predict Modi's rise or write about the CWG scam. However, Modi's victory cemented my role as someone whose opinions on national issues should be taken seriously, who had a point, and I think I had made several right calls up till then, and I think since 2014 I have a separate set of readers who are, you can even say, more interested in my columns and national views than my fiction, and giving me an interesting alternative career as well, and a turning point too.
When I was posted as Inspector General Prisons, it was a turning point of my career. People thought I was going to the wrong place. I knew I was going to the right place. While the government was dumping me as IG prison, I know it was a punishment posting of that time. It is no more a punishment. It's now a parking position for somebody to become a police commissioner of Delhi. It's a parking place in Delhi. Then it was a punishment posting.
Wow.
Nobody was wanting to go as IG Tihar. Nobody would go there. So I was just posted because they didn't have anything better for me. And I had to be accommodated. After having done a Mizoram hard area posting, they just put me into IG prison. Everybody said, why you? Why are you going there? I didn't say anything. In my heart of hearts, I was going to the right place because I was a preventer at heart. I was a reformer at heart. I was a corrector at heart. I was a sociologist at heart. I was a teacher at heart. So I was a preventer. So what happened was, from the day one of my entry, I started to work with the thousands of prisoners, thousands of them, whom I had also sent them to jail as a DCP West or a Deputy Commissioner of Police North. I had sent them. They remembered me. And they sent a message around in the prison, while the prison message was, oh, bhai, ye bada danda maregi, bahut maregi, bahut tang karegi. They were the ones who were saying, nahi, ye to bahut kaam karti hai, hamara bhala karti thi, हमसे बात करती थी, हमारी फैमिली को बच्चों को स्कूल भेजती थी, हमारी वाइफ को काम दिलाती थी, तो ये मारेगी नहीं. So they were the ones who were balancing my reputation in the prison, whereas the prior reputation was a mixed one. But it was a turning point.
I think the seed to disrupt was always sowed in me. It was really fueled by my parents, who gave me the wind beneath my wings to chase my goals. Even it was slightly different from what the other kids were doing. I can't thank them enough for this. Whatever I am today is because they made me believe that my dreams are important, and with hard work, my dreams could even come true. I think the most important turning point of my life was when I was told point blank by a filmmaker that I don't sell in a meeting room filled with people. This happened when I was at a low point in my career, and it shattered me, broke my heart. But at the same time, it drove me to prove that you should never undermine anybody's human potential.
When I joined the civil service, I ended up in the backwaters of Kerala as a civil servant. And there, manufacturing had severely failed in the state, and Kerala's atmosphere was very heavily surcharged with trade unions.
Right.
There was a communist regime, and at one stage of my career, I ran into a severe problem with the political leadership. Mm-hmm. I was, in fact, left without a posting for a very long time. And, I was punished and I was without a posting for a very, very long time. And then in what among bureaucratic circles is referred to as a punishment posting, I was posted as Secretary Tourism. At that stage, at that point of time, no one had ever heard of Kerala as a tourism destination. We went back to the roots of Kerala. We brought back Kerala houseboats, in which not a single nail is used. All the carpenters had gone away to the Gulf. We brought them back. We went back to the roots of Kerala, the traditional art and cultural forms of Kerala, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, Theyyam, the tree houses, Ayurveda for rejuvenation, Kerala cuisine. All of them were brought alive in a very contemporary manner and presented to the world. We were saying that we will do everything, but we will not ape the West. And we went back to Kerala's roots, back to its tradition, critically maintaining the distinct features of Kerala. And, Kerala became a very coveted tourism destination for the alert, independent traveler. And with the National Geographic terming it as one of the 10 exotic paradises of the world.
After my pre-university, I wanted to go for engineering. My father said, now our financial conditions are so poor, you need not go. Then I was making something like a hunger strike for 1 week, but I could not succeed. And my father was very stubborn. Then I ended my hunger strike. And because my ambition to become engineer was refused at pre-university level. Then I took as a challenge, and I got more aggression. At least that whatever direction my father is showing, I should that achieve. So with that aggression, I was studying my BSc. With that, I got 400 out of 400 in the mathematics subject. That made me allowed to enter into my BTech, which I was aiming for earlier.
As part of the in this entrepreneurial journey, there are many moments like this. But in 2015, deciding to move from offline to online, from those large auditorium, stadium-based sessions to moving from those giant screens to small screens, and by doing that, launching Learning App in 2015, when at a time where apps were taking off, but there was nothing called learning apps. It's a segment which we kind of defined and then created, and like without sounding arrogant, I'll say more or less own it today. That's in 2015.
1995 में 5 जनवरी को फिर ये एक नया दौर शुरू हो गया, जिसमें हमने सोचा कि हमको भगवान ने जो सामर्थ्य दिया है वो उसको हमें सेवा में लगाना चाहिए. हमारे पास में ज्ञान है, हमारे पास विद्या है, विभूति है, प्रतिभा है, शक्ति, सामर्थ्य है, उससे हम सेवा करें. तो फिर ये एक पहला ट्रस्ट बना, और वहाँ से जो आज एक बहुत बड़े रूप में हम जिसको देख रहे हैं, इसका बीज आरोपण कहें, इसका सूत्रपात कहें, तो वो योग का, आयुर्वेद का, स्वदेशी का उस समय इतना विराट लक्ष्य हमारे सामने नहीं था। ये बाद में जुड़ा। श्रद्धाचार्य जिसके बारे में आपको और ज़्यादा बता देंगे। तो फिर बस ये यात्रा ऐसे हम कहें तो साधनों के तौर पर शून्य से शुरू हुई। हमारे पास में माने यदि हम उसको पैसे की दृष्टि से कहें तो 1 रुपए भी नहीं था। और शून्य से यात्रा शुरू हो करके यहाँ तक पहुंची। तो 1995 जो है वो एक तरह से बीजारोपण हुआ संस्था का।
I was an Hindi medium kid and I was a topper in my school, but I was in an English medium school. Engineering college was English medium. So I had to learn how to study in English, a normal subject. And that was tremendous pressure of even not able to talk to your friend because people in Delhi speak in English. I come from a background, people speak in Hindi. I mean, it was very, I don't know how to tell you. Sometimes I quote this as a Tare Zameen Par story where the alphabets are flying and you're sitting in the class. And today I can say that it was so imagine, Shweta, I'm sitting in the front row of the class. I just do not understand what teacher is speaking. And I was, by the way, 15-year-old. I was a teenager when I was engineering college graduate. 19 years when I graduated from engineering, Delhi College of Engineering. So I entered early in this college. So 15-year-old, I'm in front row because I was used to of being in the front row. And teacher is asking me a question after writing something. And the best described moment is in the words of Pink Floyd. Your lips move, but I can't hear what you say. So I went through this. I think I went through this feeling that I'm not among the peers that I'm sitting with. I went through this feeling of being outcasted because I was not able to speak the language. I was not able to understand the language. Slowly from the front bench, I went to the back bench, and from the back bench, I went to the computer center. And then as a computer nerd, I sort of started to do internet programming or programming, so to say, in my college early year. So I'm not an engineering college electronics and communication educated as much I am educated in my computer lab in college, because my class was where I used to be a failure who would not even answer a teacher's question. And computer center would be where I was the hero. This is a classic nerd story that happens in the world, right?
I did not grow up in any kind of religious influence or philosophical background. I grew up in the 60s with European philosophers, Dostoevsky, Camus, Kafka, and of course Beatles and stuff. So I did not grow up in any kind of spiritual background. It's just that I was a super skeptic. I was skeptical about the rules of the family, which is where you're born, the rules of the society, the political system, the economic system, and of course the religion that's happening around you. 100% skeptical about everything. I'm a million questions, a cloud of questions traveling with me wherever I go. There's a time my restlessness made me ride crisscrossed India a few times on my motorcycle because I couldn't sit in one place, I had to go somewhere. Then after I finished my university, I thought, I will make some money and then hit the road. Then I got into one business and another business, another business. So I'm in a super cocky state where, everything is working the way you want it, you're young and what? One afternoon, between two business meetings, I had nothing much to do. This is a tradition in Mysore, at least at that time, for the youth in Mysore. We want to test our motorcycles, we ride up the Chamundi Hill. We want to trek Chamundi Hill. We want to have a party, Chamundi Hill. You fall in love, you have to go up the hill. If you fall out, of course. If you have nothing to do,
you go up Chamandi Hill. So I naturally rode up Chamandi Hill. I parked, went and sat on a rock. My eyes were still open. Suddenly I did not know which is me and which is not me. Till that moment, this was me and this is somebody else. I have no issue with the somebody, but this is me and that's somebody. Suddenly I did not know which is me and which is not me. The very rock upon which I was sitting, the air that I breathed, the atmosphere around me, everything had exploded into me. This madness lasted, I thought, for about 10–15 minutes. When I came back to my normal consciousness, it was about 4.5 hours. Sun had set, my eyes were open, I'm fully conscious, but time just flipped out. For the first time, for the very first time in my adult life, tears. Me and tears are impossible. I'm like this. Here I am, my shirt is all wet. I've always been peaceful and happy, that's not been an issue. Everything is working your way, what's the problem? But here I am, every cell in my body is opening up like a flower, and I'm ecstatic, dripping with ecstasy. I did not choose this. But when I look back now, I see how this happens. Right now my whole life is somehow to rub off this experience on as many people as possible because it's worthwhile, not because of anything else. I would like to live in an ecstatic world.